Alright, so in this video we are going to be creating a table of values from an equation. Okay, so remember, a function, every input has one output. So that means with each of these equations we're assuming that every input is going to have one output because these equations, I'm telling you, are functions. Okay, so we've kind of done this a little bit earlier this year with strictly linear equations, which means linear functions. But now in this unit, remember, functions aren't just going to be linear. Okay, so I've given you an equation here. Now whether I give you inputs or I give you outputs, you should be able to figure out the missing piece by plugging in whichever one I give you. So remember, inputs are x values, outputs are y values. So if I give you x is equal to -2 in this equation, then we're going to put -2 where x is. So y is going to be equal to -2 times -2 plus 6. Right? I replaced x with the value that I'm trying to find the output for. So if I input -2, what is going to be my output? Well, negative times negative gives me +4 plus 6. Means that my output for my input of -2, the output is 10. Okay, then I repeat that process with my next input of -1. So y is equal to -2 times -1 plus 6. So this gives me 2 plus 6, which is 8. Do that again with 0, so -2 times 0 plus 6. Well, this is 0 plus 6 is then 6. And -2 times 1 plus 6. -2 plus 6 is then 4. Okay, so that's how we create a table of values. So why don't you pause the video and try these two equations and then play it when you're ready to check your answers. So this second equation, notice we've got an exponent here. So when I plug in my input, I need those parentheses around to enclose that negative. Okay. So -2 times -2 is going to be a +4. If you typed this into your calculator and did not use parentheses, it's going to give you a -4, which is not correct. This is +4. Subtract 1 gives me 3. And then I plug 0 in. 0 squared is just 0. Subtract 1 gives us -1. 2 squared is 4. Subtract 1 gives me 3. 4 squared is 16. Subtract 1 gives me 15. Okay. Now you may be thinking this table looks a little weird, but remember, you really haven't done a table that's had an exponent in it yet. This is not a linear equation, which we'll talk more about which equations are linear, which aren't in the next video. But these three shouldn't mess you up because every input has its own output. Remember, it doesn't matter if I have the same output that has different inputs. Every input has its own output. Okay, we have no double inputs here. Okay, so this still is a function. So next table, we're doing 3 subtract x. So this can be tricky if you don't watch your negative signs. It's 3 subtract x, and x is a -5. So you can use your calculator here or keep change. That is 8. 3 subtract 0 is 3. 3 subtract 5 is -2. 3 subtract 10 is -7. Right? So next, we are going to fill in this table. And I'm going to have you do this first on your own. Pause the video and fill in this table. And then plot your points on the graph. And press play when you're ready to check your answers. Okay, so again, remember we got to watch those parentheses with the negatives when we're squaring. Okay, so this is 4 subtract 3, which is 1. Negative 1 squared is 1 subtract 3, which is negative 2. 0 squared is 0. Subtract 3 gives me negative 3. 1 squared is 1. Subtract 3, which is negative 2. 2 squared is 4. Subtract 3, which is 1. Okay, so then when we go to plot it, remember these just act like ordered pairs, x, comma, y. So I go to my x-axis and find negative 2, and go up to my y value of 1 and put a point there. Then negative 1 down to negative 2, 0 down to negative 3, 1 down to negative 2, 2 up to 1. Now, if this is where you left it, that's fine. But from now on, realize when you have a graph that's got this exponent here, you kind of connect your points like this. Okay, and this is actually called a parabola. This shape, this U shape, is called a parabola. And this is actually a quadratic equation. So this is an equation you'll learn more about next year in Algebra 1. Okay, in 8th grade, we've learned a lot about linear equations. Next year, you'll start learning about quadratic equations, and you'll see a lot more parabolas. But right now, all you need to be able to do is make a table and then plot those points on a graph. Okay. So let's look at this next table of values. So go ahead and pause the video and try to fill it in and make the graph, and then play when you're ready to check your answers. All right, so this equation looks a little different than some of the ones we saw at the very beginning of the video. So you can get your y value leaving the equation like this if you would like. So I could plug in this negative 1 for x, and it would look like this. So then I would get negative 2 here, and then I would have to add 2 to both sides to figure out what y is equal to, which makes y equal to negative 1. Now you can do that, but then you're really going to be solving this equation every time, right? Because y is not by itself. So what I like to do is I like to rearrange this equation right away. Meaning I'm going to subtract this 2x from both sides, so it's gone on that side, and I'm left with y is equal to negative 2x subtract 3. Because remember, these aren't like terms, so they just go next to each other. So as long as you are confident that you won't mess up rearranging this equation, you could do this first, but realize if you make a mistake rearranging, then all of your answers are going to be wrong. So that's just up to you. And so now when I use this equation, I don't have to solve every time. Once I plug x in and calculate this, that tells me what y equals. So that's how I like to do these. So y here is going to be equal to negative 2 times 0, subtract 3. This becomes 0, take away 3, makes negative 3. Same thing, negative 2 times 1, take away 3. So this becomes negative 2, take away 3, which makes that negative 5. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4, take away 3, makes negative 7. Negative 2 times 3 is negative 6, take away 3 is negative 9. Okay, and this type of table should look familiar, right? This equation is linear, we've got no exponents. So our slope's here, negative 2, hence why we are decreasing by negative 2 each time. So then we're going to plot those points. Remember, start on the x-axis. This is negative 1, goes with my y value, negative 1. 0 down to my y value of negative 3. 1 down to my y value of negative 5. And we can't plot the rest. So that is good enough on the graph. Okay. If you wanted to extend it this way, realize you could. I didn't give you those values on the table, so you didn't have to.